Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. In a moment, you will hear the introduction to my book, Return to Earth. Have a good time. Earth is no more. 168 years ago, it was too damaged for any living thing to survive. In the year 3000, the gods that humanity had worshipped thousands of years before returned, for one purpose only, to pick up where they left off. They wanted to make the humanity they had evolved worship them. When they entered the atmosphere in their gigantic ships, humanity was terrified. Chaos had taken over the earth. Eyes watched in horror and curiosity as these extraterrestrials entered the atmosphere. The whole world was awash with breaking news. Everyone stopped what they were doing at that moment. People rushed to the windows of their homes, wondering if the news was real. On the internet, there were fans saying that the saviors had arrived. Finally, the question everyone had been wondering about was answered. We are not alone. They're here, said the fans. They came to save the world. They came to end hunger. They came to end wars. Welcome. Their voices echoed through the streets. When all the ships were close enough to the earth to be clearly visible, they stopped. The door of the mothership opened, and an imposing figure in metallic suits, 2.3 meters tall, glided out of the door. No wings or technology were visible on him. The creature under the metallic clothes resembled a human being. It hovered in the air. His gaze was sharp. He looked directly at the people on the ground. The streets became silent. Everyone looked up at the sky in wonder and fear. Heads of state were in emergency meetings. All countries were keeping their armies on high alert. At the slightest sign of an attack, there would be a response. Humanity had improved its technology a lot in the last 1,000 years. They could travel to Mars and back in less than a month. They had found cures for all diseases. They had produced weapons that could destroy an object instantly. No matter how much science and technology had advanced, humanity in the third millennium was just as quarrelsome and discriminatory as it had been in the 2 millennia. The capitalist system continued. Even if solutions to diseases were found, treatment costs were very high. Hunger, disease, and wars continued. It was forbidden to use destructive weapons in wars. These weapons were designed to be used against highly dangerous enemies. For 500 years, peoples had debated what this meant. Now they were sure of the answer. But what they did not know was that these weapons had no destructive effect on those who came. They could be far more advanced, far wiser, and far more cruel. And they were. The creature hovering in front of the mothership spoke. The time has come. At that moment, humanoid figures began to emerge from the other ships. They all stood in a single line, as if on a tightrope. They were soldiers. You could tell they were soldiers by the shiny little orbs wrapped around their arms. They stood tall, taller than any human being, loyal soldiers waiting for a command. They had once questioned their leader and had received great punishment for their questioning. After serving their sentences, they had been transformed into loyal soldiers who questioned nothing, who only obeyed orders. Now they were waiting for their orders. Enlil spoke, "My servants, the time has come. Bow down and obey. Follow the example of your ancestors and please your gods." The people looked at each other with puzzled expressions. They were trying to figure out what to do. One of them shouted at Enlil, "I will not bow down to you. Not even the Creator would ask me to do that. You are not a god." Enlil ignored the shouter. He turned to the soldiers and ordered them to begin. In less than a second, as if teleported, the soldiers stood in front of the people. The orbs in their arms flew up, each orb going to a person. The sphere scanned from the head to the feet. But there was no light, no holographic image, nothing. It was just moving up and down. The creature the sphere matched with could not move. The part scanned by the sphere became translucent, and the person scanned screamed in pain. People stood in the streets, exposed to the orbs scanning them. Like knife cuts, people's whole bodies were in pain. Eyes wide open, everything but pain was forgotten. Neither the mother could think of her son, nor the son of his mother, so much so that if the way to get rid of the pain was to give up one's child, every mother in the world would give up her child without thinking. The pain was indescribable. They could not react. They could not shout. They could not run away. They could only writhe inside. As this was happening, heads of state gave the order to strike. The armies of their countries mobilized and started launching missiles against these foreigners. The missiles were destroyed by the ships before they could get close to them. Seeing this, the governments, they fired bigger and more effective missiles and laser weapons. But when the foreign ships destroyed them before they even got close, the heads of state and their entourage were terrified. Now they were really scared. They looked at each other in tears. All the heads of state decided to launch the escape plan as a last resort. At the same time, a high-pitched voice echoed around the world, calling everyone to take shelter. People who had not yet been captured by the spheres rushed to follow the soldiers of the world. They were putting people in cars and taking them to the shelters. Some of them were captured by the spheres. Some jumped out of the cars, not wanting to leave their loved ones. The people brought to the bunkers were put on underground hyperspeed trains and taken to 3 different parts of the world. Here they were put on spaceships. They were trying to save as many as they could. The ships quickly reached their full capacity. When the leaders of the countries were informed that the ships were full, they pressed the button. Nuclear bombs streaked across the sky towards their targets. Enlil's ship gave a warning signal, and a transparent spherical shield began to appear around the ship. When the nuclear bombs touched the shield, the whole sky went dark. The explosion turned everything around to ash for thousands of kilometers. At that moment, the doors of the underground bunkers opened. 3 gigantic spaceships came into view. The ship captains accelerated to top speed. The ships left the atmosphere in 10 seconds. There were dozens of enemy ships orbiting the Earth. The enemy ships began to open fire. Enlil said, "I will punish them all. This time I will not forgive." Enlil's ship had been in space before the humans had left the atmosphere, and it had not suffered any major damage despite being hit by nuclear bombs. Their technology was far superior to that of the humans. The fire was returned, but it was futile. The humans were just trying to escape. They had already realized that they could not defeat them. One of the ships exploded, reducing the human ships to 2. Enki knew that this time he would not be able to convince Enlil because humanity was very advanced and had the technology to make their planet uninhabitable. They had used this technology. Humanity was not as weak as it had been the previous time. This time, he was going to help people in space, not on Earth. After the nuclear explosion, they received a signal in their system that detected underground movement. Enki immediately logged into the system and cloaked 2 ships, leaving the 3rd ship as bait. It was the only way to save the people. Cruel as it was the only way. Enki knew that Enlil would not think there could be more ships because Enlil would succumb to his ego. Humanity in his eyes were the weaklings of 15,000 years ago. They could build a spaceship, maybe, but nothing more. In an instant, Enlil's army destroyed that one ship. As pieces of the ship flew into space, people saw a sign on their screens. "Don't look back. Get out of here now."